Good morning on a beautiful day. Sunday was a good afternoon as well. It was really nice, so I decided I was going to take my kayak and go for a little float down the river here in Woodlawn. So loaded my kayak up and I was driving down past the Humane Society road when a deer ran out in front of me, just bounded out of the trees and into the grass. And so knowing that where there's one, there's usually more, I slowed down, and as I slowed down looking for more deer coming, I saw this little baby in the weeds. And so I backed the truck up and waited, and then out of the weeds came this little tiny deer. Must have been only a day old or something. It looked like a cat with long legs. That's how tiny it was. It came up to the edge of the road and sniffed the road and then skittered across. It was really, really cool. I've never seen a fawn that was that small before. So then I got down to the river, and typically when you go on the river you see all kinds of painted turtles. They're always up on the logs or up on the rocks sunning themselves, and I saw hundreds of those. But as I was going along, I looked along the side of the river a little bit, and there was something that looked sort of like a bleached tire against the shoreline. So I went over and looked at that, and here was this great big snapping turtle, or tortoise, I don't know what it was, but it was huge. So I paddled quietly over to it, and it sort of lazily looked at me and then crawled off the banks and swam down underneath my kayak. I saw another great big snapping turtle that afternoon too, so that's two in one day, and I've only seen one any other time I've ever been down there, so that was kind of cool. Then as I was sort of just floating in the middle of the river, really quietly, a white-tailed deer came out of the trees. And he looked at me, and then he looked off the other direction, then he looked at me again, and then he went, "Arr!" I've never heard a deer make that sound before, but that's the scream he let out. And then he looked at me again, and he looked away, and then he looked back at me and screamed again, and then he did it a third time. It was really kind of cool. I saw some muskrat. I saw two muskrats swimming around in the river as well. Saw lots of kingfisher birds. They were kind of fun to see. It was just like Wild Kingdom down there. It was really neat. But the thing that I liked the most on the river that day were the little water bugs. Every once in a while I'd come along, there'd be 20 or so water bugs just sort of just skittering all over the top of the water. They were so small I couldn't even see them. I could just see the wakes they were making. There were just these little white dots in the water. And as I looked at those little white dots and all the other things that I had seen, I got thinking about the fact that all this life takes place on our river. All this life is there, and nobody human looks after it. Nobody takes care of them. Nobody fosters them. Nobody made that baby deer, be born. No one was there when that happened. No one was there when those turtles were born. No one was there when those big snapping turtles came along. Humanly speaking, we've got nothing to do with it. Even those little water bugs, they exist, and they're living. And regardless of what's going on in our world, regardless of the things we're worrying about, planets still spin, sun still comes up, the stars are still in their orbits, water bugs are still being born. I just really like that idea. I know there are some big things going on. I know there are some really serious things going on politically and socially in our world. I know some of you have really serious problems in your own life, economic problems, social problems, problems within your families, mental health issues. I know there's lots of really big things going on, but one of the things that helps me is to remember that we are not in control, but there is one who is in control. Jesus said famously in Matthew chapter 6, he said this, "I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, or about your body and what you will wear. Is not life more important than food, and the body more important than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they?" Listen to this last line. Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to his life? It was a good reminder for me on Sunday that while I like to worry about 1,000 things, and while I think I'm in control and I've got to fix everything, I'm not in control of much. And the world still goes on, that God's looking after things. He's looking after the deer and the turtles and the little water bugs, and he's looking after me too. He's looking after you. So whether you can get down to the river or not today, that's irrelevant. You can look out your window and you can see trees and birds, and you can hear them singing. There are good things happening. We're not alone. Life sometimes feels like it's coming apart, but God says, I'm still here.